Welcome to the Funded Now What podcast with your host, Andrew Lee Miller, brought to you by Growth Experts. You're in store for a chat about funding, marketing, startups, and all things growth.
All right, everybody. Hello and welcome back to the Funded Now What podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lee Miller, also known as Andrew Startups. And today is a special day because we've got our first ever blockchain startup on the show. And they just raised $25 million a couple months ago from literally the best VCs in the world. Azeem Khan, how you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to talk about it. Being the first blockchain startup is a great honor. And so I hope that we're able to give a conversation that lives up to it now.
Oh, no, you are. And not only have you already been successful in legitimizing the space, as you know, like it's been, it took a little bit of a dive during COVID and it's coming back, at least in San Francisco in a major way. And you're in New York. But tell us about Miden, right? Miden is how you say it?
Yeah, Miden. Yeah.
From what I see, we have this joke in San Francisco where the people who got richest in the gold rush were not actually gold miners. They were selling like picks and axes. And at a high level, this looks like very picks and axes, like base layer for everything safe that we're going to do on the blockchain in the future. Is
100%.
that kind of how the right way to describe it to lay people?
Yeah, I think the simplest way to put it would be, a blockchain at the end of the day is a database that you can put information into, and it can hold different kinds of information. When people think about Bitcoin, which is the most well-known blockchain, the idea of what it really stores is just like values of like, you have this, you sent this, and it's just a ledger of like financial transactions of like pluses and minuses that you're able to keep that's sitting in a public ledger. And then when Ethereum came about, it added smart contracts to the idea of the ledger. And so you could store other kinds of information and do interesting things with that. And a large premise of what we believe is that the reality of how blockchains need to move forward for potential mass adoption is one in which it's not all a public ledger. Because, the idea of every single thing that you do on the internet being publicly available for anyone to analyze. And now with like the rise of AI, like we were just mentioning, it's not going to be hard within, a year or two for a layperson to be able to spin up some AI agent, find a crypto wallet address, and then be able to understand every single thing that this person has done or is doing. And so if we really want, blockchain to go mainstream, do we really want it that when you go to Chipotle every time that we're able to know that, you got extra chicken or extra guac because of how much you spent, and this is just always available? Like, no, absolutely not. And stepping away from the idea of personal people doing it, like, can you imagine if you went to a car wash or you dealt with a bank, every single thing that anyone did was publicly available for anyone to analyze? It doesn't make any sense.
Too much data,
too public. Like, privacy is a fundamental human right. And the idea of Miden is basically, how do you create a blockchain that offers privacy? It also offers scalability. Many of the blockchains at the moment who can offer you privacy, they're super slow. So they're not actually something that you can run the world's financial system on. And then most importantly at the end, because with private blockchains comes this idea of, well, what are the illegal things that are being done there?
Right.
And how do you offer compliance then? In that, that the North Korean Lazarus group is not using this blockchain to launder money. And so at a very high level, what Miden is doing is bringing about a blockchain. And so just like a database architecture that applications can come build on top of, that will allow them to be able to say, this offers privacy at the base level. This offers scalability, so you don't have to think about, what if it's too slow to handle the volume of transactions? Will this break if I make a really popular application? And then finally, how can I make sure that I'm compliant with, laws and regulations that need to be followed? Because you don't want to build something that, unintentionally ends up being used to do illegal things, because then that means that you're going to get in trouble because you're complicit in helping, make those illegal things happen.
Yeah.
And so the honest basis of Miden is like being able to offer that to builders and then use that as a canvas for, do you want to build something that will do, I can see this eventually being something for like electronic medical records. This can be something where we're already having conversations with very large Fortune 50, even Fortune 10 companies about what does it look
Wow.
like to do supply chain logistics on here. And so we're having a lot of conversations. The first level conversations always end up being financially related because blockchain and fintech really go hand in hand. I
Of
tell
course.
people that I see blockchain as just being fintech 2.0.
It is
That's really
fintech.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is just, it's just new iteration of fintech. That's it, right? But what else does that look like? Like once you do finance well, and so there's a government in Asia that I'm having conversations with their public health department about what it looks like to be able to put, you know, use this technology to hold medical records. In October, I need to go and sit down with like government leaders about what that could look like. And so it's really interesting because it's way more about how you build the canvas for people to then bring their creativity to it for ways that the technology can be used. And that's everything we're thinking about at Miden.
Wow, that's amazing. And I see it as, obvious play for governments. It's way more secure than my wife is South African, and her medical
Okay.
records are literally on paper at an office
Yeah.
in Pretoria that you have to like go to, and it could burn down, and then your medical records are gone. Whereas blockchain is so secure. But I guess my first question before any of the fundraising or marketing related fun stuff we're going to get into is, how are you able to ensure that your tools are not going to be used by unsavory folk?
So in the first few years, the way we'll be running everything this is on the more technical end, but like the sequencer is going to be a centralized sequencer as we do
Okay.
progressive decentralization. And so basically for those first 2 years, like every single thing will be private if you decide to try to go look at a transaction that happened. But actually, internally, we will be able to still make sure that things are done in a way that is
That's
kosher.
good.
However, after that, we're looking at as decentralization takes place, and this is beyond what we can talk about here, but it's like you have to talk about something called the privacy trilemma. And how are you supposed to go about making sure that you're offering something private enough with compliance? So there's going to be compromises we need to make,
Yeah.
but it's something that we understand. Like we believe in decentralization, but at the same time, you have to be able to figure out how to follow laws. And so working at being able to do that, we probably have about 2 or 3 years till we really need to grapple with what that looks like going
Yeah.
public. But making sure that we're able to is absolutely at the top of our priority list. Like I've been in the blockchain space publicly since the end of 2013.
Publicly.
I wrote an article about Bitcoin or the New York City Bitcoin Center for the Huffington Post at the end of 2013. I'd been paying attention to what was going on in 2011 and 2012, but
Wow.
like really started getting involved and meeting people in 2013. And I say that to say our industry is very well known and rife for scams, like to
Yeah.
put it bluntly, and like,
Yeah.
get rich quick schemes and selling monkey JPEGs for 6 and 7 figures. And I am not someone who has wealthy, like, not to, like, I'm thankfully very comfortable in that, like, my student loans are still being paid on a monthly basis. I drive a used Lexus, which is great for me. You
Respect.
know, I still have my home mortgage. I don't own any like precious metal watches. Like I don't own a Ferrari, anything like that, because I've genuinely been in this for the tech and I've been in this space for a very long time now. And
Love that.
so, when we went about being like, what are we going to do with Miden? It's along the same lines as how do we build something for long-term value that also makes sure that, we're not just building something that's going to be some sort of get rich quick scheme. My name is on here. I'm not an anon. I've been doing stuff publicly for a long time. And so making sure that we do things in ways that adhere to laws and regulations is like of the utmost importance to
I
us.
agree. And it's only going to scare away the clients you don't want. It's going to,
Absolutely.
I think it's going to revolutionize the space because there was a lot of negative press about safety and
Hmm.
anonymity. And I think 2.0, like you mentioned, it makes sense that yes, it's still decentralized, but it's compliant. and
That's
the
it.
company has a visibility that ensures these governments are safe. No
Yeah.
governments are going to go to a fully anonymous thing. They're
No.
just not going to put themselves at risk of being doxxed or some crazy stuff happening from, like you said, North Korea or something. So I think that's really beautiful, and that makes more sense as to why you were able to raise so much money, because everybody knows the potential of this like new internet
Yeah.
and the ability for it to scale, but that was the major question mark. Like the main early adopters were, you mentioned like getting in trouble here in San Francisco. We all look up to Ross Ulbricht, who
Yep.
recently just got out of prison.
Yep.
But negative in the media, like it's crazy. I go home to Ohio and I see images of him on the television, or like the world's largest drug dealer. And in San Francisco, he's considered a
A
pioneer in
hero. Yeah.
crypto and Bitcoin and hero, who was unnecessarily vilified by governments, again, for the anonymity of
Yeah.
of it. So I
And
think
for the
that's
things that were going on his platform with anonymity, right?
right.
And so, those are things. And then there are very clear scammers too when we look at, SPF and what happened with the whole FTX fiasco. But
Yeah.
being able to make sure that we're not unknowingly facilitating things that are illegal. It's just like there's been a lot of times where I could have cashed out, gotten rich, would have had my Ferraris or Lambos or
Yeah.
whatever, but they're just things where I'm just like, that is just not the right long-term move to make. It's too short-sighted to think that. And people do constantly get in trouble. People like there's a bunch of people who get away as well. But I'm just like, I am not putting that risk up. Like that is
It,
not worth it.
it's not even just about you. I mean, you have a bigger mission to
Yes.
legitimize the space. And so, yeah, you might be
Yes.
able to make your 20 mil, get out quick, but
Yes.
there's billions of dollars opportunity here. I think we both see the long horizon where this is the internet and everything is on the blockchain and all
Yeah.
currency is on the blockchain and everything is done digitally. But also I think it's a really valiant effort being a part of legitimizing it away from just tech dudes and behind closed doors and with masks on, to like
Totally.
everybody understanding it. And I think that's a really amazing thing. Like I mentioned before we started recording, I'm seeing a wave coming back to San Francisco. Like nobody
Yeah.
mentioned blockchain here for like 5 years. And
Nope.
then now it's just
It's
starting. Actually, a cryptographer friend of mine just moved from New York to a blockchain startup here in San Francisco, which I won't name in case they're
fascinating.
competitive, but I'll
Yeah,
tell you
yeah.
offline. But
That's
but
fine.
uh
Yeah.
but that's
You know,
amazing.
man,
So go ahead.
I actually, just as an aside, I actually don't see any blockchain startup as competitive. I see it as, to be really honest with you, it's the off-chain versus the on-chain world. That's it. Like all of us are taking different attempts at figuring out
True.
what we can do to bring more of the world on chain, the same way 20 years ago, 25 years ago, people were looking at how to bring the world more online.
Yeah.
And so when I think about it, like, don't get me wrong, man, I have a lot of friends like and peers who are extremely wealthy. And they've been in blockchain for a long time and this and that. But like people who private jets, all the fancy watches, the fancy cars, the houses in different places. Like, I'm going to the UAE this weekend, and one of my friends was like, "Oh, do you want to use my house that's extra and just available at like the Atlantic, like some like
You don't
multi-million
want to go
dollar
to
apartment?"
Atlantis. It's too far away from all your
So
meetings. I used
100
to
that
live
was
there. 5 years I lived in Dubai in the startup scene there. So I can definitely.
I was like, nah, bro, I'm good on my. It's literally a $60 a night hotel that I got. In
There's no such thing as free offers in Dubai either. So I don't want
Nope.
to throw anybody
No,
under the
no,
bus,
no, no,
but
no. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I was like, no, I'm good. I was like, I'm gonna rent my little Toyota Corolla, and I'm gonna stay at a $60 a night hotel, and I
Where
was
is
like,
it? Where is it in Dubai? I'll tell you.
Silicon Oasis.
Oh, you're far away. It's far
Yeah,
outside the
yeah,
city,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. No,
it's
no,
a
no. I
fun
know.
drive. You'll actually be in the desert, so you'll be able to pull
Yes,
over and see camels, and
You know what I'm excited to do? That I've been going to Dubai on and off for 5 years.
I
I still
bet
haven't done ATVing in the desert. I'm gonna go do that this time. I'm gonna be
you'll
out there
do
for 2
that.
weeks. Yeah,
Oh wow, 2 weeks. It's July now. Oh, it's gonna
it's
be
gonna be
warm.
rough. It's gonna be
Go to
rough.
the
It's gonna be.
desert in the evening. We'll talk
Yep.
offline. I don't want to
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
hijack, but I love
yeah.
Dubai. It's my favorite place in the whole world. And people, I mean, San Francisco also, but Dubai feels like home because I moved there at a very young age and built a life. I started my career actually in Dubai. So a startup took a
Ah,
risk on me. We had a really big exit a year later. I did some crazy growth hacky stuff. And that's where
okay.
I really learned oh, I can replicate this over and over again at companies.
That's
And I shifted
fascinating.
to, that was a B2C startup. I never
Hmm.
touched that again after that. And then once I got into B2B, it was like so replicable and easy, which is
Yeah.
why I'm excited to chat. So let's talk a little bit about the fundraising, because again, you are the biggest seed round I've allowed to come on the show, because
Very cool.
as I mentioned to you before recording, this amount of money, usually marketing is kind of an afterthought. Like we've got to
Hmm.
dive into product marketing. We'll just throw a bunch of money at it. So I'm not usually able to create as much value, but
Hmm.
I loved what you're working on. And I just wanted to know, how were you able to make the pitch to A16Z to get back into crypto? And was that a large ask, or how did
Do
that
you know,
work?
man? So what's interesting is actually I joined the team a little bit late when they were already in earlier parts of like having done a lot of the fundraising. Prior
Wow.
to this, I had a different blockchain last year where it was called Morph. It was incubated by one of the large centralized exchanges, like a Coinbase or Binance competitor for your audience.
Mm-hmm.
And I raised 20 million for that one. And I had put together, that was actually a B2C blockchain idea. And the thesis had basically been the exchange that we were working with was going to be a very large distribution partner, and they have vertically integrated set of companies that will be able to use one to make sure that the blockchain itself would be able to have users, liquidity, transactions, and all of that. And then secondarily, that we would have the resources to be able to pump into builders who would come and build applications on top of that. Prior to that, I was at a company named Gitcoin DAO, where I was the head of BD sales and partnership for a variety of things they did. One of which was a very large and the most well-known grants program in all of crypto for the Ethereum ecosystem. So in my about 2 years there, my work ended up being I would raise money from well-established large companies. Like Coinbase was a company that we got seven figures from during my time.
Wow.
And we would then head grants rounds for like open source software, Web3 climate, Web3 gaming, Web3 social, Ethereum infrastructure, decentralized science, whatever it was. We had to have different verticals. I would then go to people that those things made sense to, regulatory advocacy and policymaker education. I would raise money and then we would distribute this money. So in that time of 2 years, I helped distribute what must have been $15 million to like 4,000 ish different builders. And
Wow.
so I've been in this very opportune place where right place, right time, getting to get coin and getting to know the exchanges, the venture funds, the high net worth individuals, the protocols, the people making money, everything. And
Yeah.
so fast forward that to, coming back to what you asked about Miden, my team are killers. I mean, our CTO was doing early ZK work, zero knowledge, meaning like privacy focused blockchain things years ago, working with the Ethereum Foundation, doing some of the earliest iterations of what this would look like. Then he went on to actually lead the ZK team at Facebook for years when Facebook had like the cryptocurrency project
Mm-hmm.
internally going on. And so there were a couple major teams within the Facebook or Meta, I guess. I can't call it Meta. It's still Facebook to me. Like I'm old, so it's still just Facebook to me. But like uh, he was leading like the what you can call like the privacy blockchain aspect of things there for years. And from there actually came two of the more successful blockchain startups, which are actually based out of the Bay, I believe, is Aptos and Sui. So
Okay.
those were actually teams that were internal to the Facebook team that went off and
Wow.
launched their own iterations. I think each of them respectively ended up like collectively raising, like if you added the two, like close to 1 billion in
Yeah, a
start,
lot.
right?
And
Like
and
they did
every and
like
everything failed at Meta, at their
yes,
Facebook
yes.
too. So
So for them, it was regulatory reasons, though, right? Like there was a
yeah.
lot of stuff they just couldn't do. So the teams were like, "Yo, we've built all this amazing tech. Let's go out and start." So Aptos ended up raising like 400 or 500 million. Sui raised like 400 or 500 million, and so Bobbin, who's my CTO, was also one of the people leading one of the major teams within Facebook. And so just from a perspective of just like being a gangster in this space, like and having really been here and doing work, when the Libra was disbanding, he was like, "Where do I go?" And he had a bunch of offers, and Polygon, one of the 10-figure crypto companies,
Yeah.
ended up bringing him in, calling him a late stage co-founder, and allowing him to build out this technology for years. He ended up joining Polygon. I think it was late 2021. He said,
Wow.
and he's been building out what we're doing at Miden since, internally being incubated and funded
I
by
saw that.
Polygon.
That's
Yeah. And
so
so,
cool.
like, when time came to figure out funding for this, like, there's such a good story there from a perspective of someone who's working at doing like really good technology and has been for years and has done the work and really gets the stuff and has legacy names involved and just everything. And the guy's brilliant, like
Sounds like it.
genuinely like full savant guy. And he's working with our other co-founder, Dominic, who's been on the team. He's been in crypto, Dominic, since 2016, and he's been working on, well-known projects for years. He was at a company named Raiden for a while. He went on to Consensus, which was founded by the Ethereum co-founder Joe Lubin, working on product there. Then he went to Polygon, where he ended up basically from day one starting to work on this with Bobbin. And so they're in this place where, from a technical perspective, they really got it. And I had been getting introduced to some folks. There were some reasons that, I ended up walking away from my startup Morph and was thinking about what I really wanted to do next. And I had some of the funds that are involved in the fundraise reach out and just be like, we have this amazing technical team, and we would love if you'd be open to chatting with them, because when it
Wow.
comes to, when it comes to the business side of stuff, there are a lot of things that they don't actually have. Like launching a token is completely foreign to most people in this industry. I
Yeah.
understand how to do those things. When it comes to chatting with market makers and liquid funds, and because of my time at Gitcoin, like having just relationships, I ended up bringing 50 angels on board for their round, right? Like, and just
Wow.
like hand reached out to about 50 people. So for me, actually, I was fortunate in that, like, I joined at a later stage of their fundraising. They had already done a lot of the work, and for me was coming in and being like, how can we now scale this and figure out the next steps and do the things that are needed in terms of like building this out. But personal brand building, company brand building, narrative, ecosystem, community, PR, social media, I mean, like all comms, all of that stuff is stuff that I understand deeply,
Yeah.
and was part of what, like, coming in to be one of the co-founders on this team and figuring out how we could go about scaling this vision and idea.
Amazing. I don't think I've ever heard that origin story where, this brilliant savant builders going out to raise money, and then the funds reach out to you like, yo, you guys would be the
Yes.
perfect team. They
Yes.
just need a sales hunter
That's it.
badass to get the
That's
deals
legit.
done.
Legit
That's a
it is just like, yo, we need
beautiful
someone who can
story.
handle the business. They have tech down. Like, if I was really honest, like, I couldn't deeply explain the tech. I've been in blockchain for a long time, but the way we're doing blockchain is basically reimagining how blockchain should work. And so, like, it's mind numbing sometimes to think about like the tech that we're actually doing. But when it comes to what are the things that are uh, possible with this tech, and when it comes to selling that vision, putting together a cohesive story, being able to go out and do media like this,
Yeah.
those are the things where I've come in and I'm like, oh, when it comes to raising the next round of funding, we're going to have to raise as much as 25 million. Honestly, it's funny, it sounds ridiculous, but like 25 million, it sounds like an insane amount of money. But because of how much everything in blockchain costs,
Yeah.
it's not. Like, I have to go out and raise another larger 8-figure, if not 9-figure amount of money to really know that we can build for years without thinking about it. And this is so that, I don't have to launch a token and then figure out how I can manipulate the price so that I can have money. Like, I don't want to have to do those things.
Yeah.
I want to keep our treasury and do the right things with it. But a lot of companies will go in, artificially manipulate the price to go up, and then sell tokens they have so they have
Of
money to keep
course. Look at
operating
the
business.
Trump coin during
Oh God, I don't even.
no, we
I
don't
don't
have
even
to
want to get
talk
into
about
it. No,
it.
man, I've been quoted in articles on Wired more than once now, talking about like my disdain for the way
Yeah.
that, like, everyone came in thinking Trump would be the crypto messiah,
I
and
know.
I remember looking around and being like, guys, like, this guy is a well-known scammer, and
Yeah.
he has been a scammer for a very long time. Please don't be surprised when this guy finesses you guys too. The strategic Bitcoin reserve was supposed to happen months ago. It's never going to happen, right? So the only thing they did was they said, like, I think it was money that they have confiscated, which still ends up amounting to like 200 billion last I looked or
Yeah.
something, right? Like, that's their strategic Bitcoin reserve now.
Yeah. Something will happen. They'll need a really good PR thing at some point. I do think there'll be a big Bitcoin jump. I also got in late 2013 just by randomly sharing an office in San Francisco with an early crypto startup founder. He started the first ever crypto lending platform. It was called BTC Jam. And he was like shouting one day, like, I just don't understand why everyone doesn't put everything in Bitcoin. And I was like, 30 and had like no money. And I was like, I guess I'm putting I saw his passion. It's the same way your passion is very, that's why those funds reached out to you. Like they need somebody who can just like speak honestly and not over people tech wise.
Yeah.
And I'm sure for Bobbin, it's really difficult to put it into lay people's terms. But this guy was clearly passionate about it. And I was like, okay, putting my life savings in that. And I just didn't have the long-term enough focus to like leave it in. So there was no IRS knowing about anything back then. And so, a triple up in a year or two was like the best thing ever. And so was not able to hodl, but
it's hard, man. I think the reality, I have a lot of people who like I meet who like are like, I wish that I had bought Bitcoin in 2013, 2014. And I was like, one of two things would have happened because I was like, I'm someone who had Bitcoin in 2013 and 2014. You would have either sold it or you would have lost it. That's it. Like the few people who actually did what needed to be done to buy and hodl over the time to have it till now,
they lost
100 million% deserve it because everyone else, like they lost their keys. There was some crypto in this wallet. There was some Bitcoin in that wallet. They forgot the private keys for it. The exchange got shut down. Like there's so many things that happen. But like I remember similar to you, man, I'd buy Bitcoin would go down to $100. I'd buy $1,000 worth and then it would go up to $600 and I would sell it. And I felt like, I was like, yo, this is crazy. Like I'm a genius. I'm a genius. I did 5X in 2 weeks and then it would go back down. I'd buy a little bit more and then I'd sell it again. Bro, if I had just bought and held and like exactly like you're saying, like, and I wouldn't have had to buy a big amount of money, I would be worth millions of dollars. Like I'm not, so I always give people like, I'm like, guys, don't worry. Like everyone was in the place. Just hold. And these days I get messages on a weekly basis. Like, yo, what should I buy from like my friends? And I'm like, buy Bitcoin, maybe buy some Ethereum, potentially buy some Solana. And please don't look at it for 5 years. Like, don't message me again after you buy it. Set up a dollar cost average purchase. Go to Coinbase, set up an account, say that you're going to buy X amount of dollars per month. But I was like, please do not message me when it's 40% down asking me what you need to do. I was like, 40% down is the kind of stuff that you have to learn to eat for breakfast if you want to be in this industry. That's it.
Yeah. I think the main problem is people have notifications on shit and they have it on their phone. So I say delete all your investing apps from your phone and just use it on desktop. That removes the ability to check quickly. And all the data is there. The more you check, the more emotional decisions you make and the more long-term gains you lose, as opposed to the last fintech startup I consulted for ended up selling to JP Morgan Chase for a lot of money. But the founder was an Bridgewater quantitative analyst. And he was like, there is a direct correlation to how much you check your investments and how low your end return is. Like the more you check, the more you sell. I don't know anything what's going on a daily basis with any of my investments.
Same here.
And the less you check anything crypto wise, because it's so volatile, the less bad mistakes you're going to make. And it's kind of a metaphor for life. Like, you just stay focused on what you're focused on, which is buying and holding, and holding. And I had a billionaire client almost 10 years ago in Czech Republic, actually. And I was like, Jean-Francois, teach me one thing, every day that I see you. And he's like, first thing, never, ever, ever sell anything unless you need the money for another vehicle that's going to make more. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you don't sell based on what you think the market's doing. You don't sell trying to time it. You only sell if you need that cash to go faster somewhere else. And
that's a fascinating insight.
It changes your game plan because we all think we're smarter than the market. We want to be alpha. We want to time it. But over the
Yeah.
course of your life, holding will always beat any alpha trading that you do. And that's like 90+% of the
That's why
time. And so
I don't do any alpha trading. I did not do any meme coin trading. Like, but when it comes to value investing, I'm excellent. Like I was people still message me. They're like, "Yo, I remember you telling me to buy Bitcoin in 2013. Like, I remember you telling me to buy it in 2014. I remember you telling me to buy it in 2017."
I
I
did
had
the
a friend
same.
message me the other day. He was like, "Yo, do you think I should buy he's like, "Should I get the Coinbase credit card?" And like he's like a successful business dude. But like
No,
the Coinbase credit card, I was just like, it was like, we're gonna give you 3 or 4% back in Bitcoin. I
they
was like, look,
do? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. I was like, bro, I was like, between you and your business and everything, I was like, if you're gonna get this card and spend 10K a year and like whatever, I was like, sure, you'll get a couple $100 in Bitcoin if Bitcoin does 5 to 10x, like it'll be some decent money. But I was like, if you're willing and ready to consolidate all of your credit card expenditures into one card and you start
It'll make a
spending
difference.
100K to 250K like you already spend in Bitcoin, and then you think about how you're going to earn 5 figures, like high four, low 5 figures in Bitcoin on a yearly basis, compounding, and then you think about how that's going to 5 to 10x over the next 5 years. I was like, it's actually a great idea. And he was like, do you think it's still going to do that? And I was like, bro, I was like, do you remember all of the times that we have discussed if you should have spent even, was it 2022 when Bitcoin went to 17 and he was like, yo, what do you think I should do? I was like, just buy a whole Bitcoin. You can afford it. And so it's like, I was like, bro, just like, I was like, if you're ready to make that commitment, I was like, but we talk about this all the time. I was like, people just not ready to make that commitment.
I think you need a new friend. Like that, he's just constantly asking for advice and then not using
And
it.
not following it.
Yeah, you should
That's
just be
just
like,
friends
talk to
though.
Chat GPT from now on. Don't talk to me. You know what I mean? Because people respect and listen to Chat GPT, but he should be listening to you. I every year at Christmas time, I share a Facebook post from 2014. Said all I want for Christmas is a $500 Bitcoin price, and I've always saw it being $1 million a coin. And then
Mm-hmm.
like I can see a teenager like in my head at like a gas station, and they're like, oh, I'll give you 0.001 for that. Like some kind of argument, like in the
Yes.
slang terms that will come out around like I'll give you 1/1000th, or I bet you
Yeah.
1/1000th, or
Yeah.
something like that. And so I
Yes.
definitely see that as the future. But there's a big risk. I mean, Bitcoin could easily go away. Like a lot of people are betting on Ethereum. And I think the one thing we know, even from that crypto lending platform, I'll never forget one of the co-founders, like, we're not really that big on Bitcoin. What we're really big on is blockchain. And blockchain, that's why I was so
Interesting.
excited to chat. Blockchain is the picks and axes. Blockchain is the internet.
Yeah.
There are many ways that people originally used the internet in the early 90s that are not around anymore.
Yeah.
Just to give a random example, there was this like early Reddit called Temple of the Screaming Electron. I don't even mention it was really bad. Like it was anything in
Yeah.
the back end of the web. It's Googleable. It's pretty interesting, but it was, for a teenage kid, I was in small town Ohio learning about,
Yeah.
things they didn't tell you at church. And so that could be like Bitcoin going away. But what are some other things? You mentioned governments wanting to store their health records, which I think is a beautiful, smart thing for governments to
Yeah.
do. What are some other early uses for the Miden blockchain that are exciting you
I
these
think
days?
honestly, so much of it's going to be financial in the early stages. Like, there's this idea of something called dark pools. And, like, and explained in plain English, dark pools is just like, how can you do trading without people being able to see and copy what you're doing? That's it. Like, like right now, if you're deciding to do trading using blockchain, like every single thing that you do is, again, like we were discussing earlier, like on a public ledger. And if you're, a large financial institution who's not even like a JP Morgan, but someone who's like trading in millions of dollars, like you don't need that. You don't want that. You don't want to be
No.
front run. You don't want people making bots to be able to copy you. How
Yeah.
do you go about doing that in a private way? Another thing is just like there's a massive amount of what they call OTC trading in crypto. And like it's literally just like how do you privately or how do you make deals to be able to sell tokens? And that could be, the treasury of a large blockchain. It could be, people just buying and selling tokens. But like how do you do this without having to just do like paperwork? How do you do it on a blockchain in a way that's not going to like create a bunch of sell pressure? How do you do private OTC compliantly? Another thing is this idea of mixers. The founder Roman Storm of Tornado Cash is in a lot of trouble with the government because he created open source software that was then leveraged by illegal actors to be able to do money laundering because you're able to anonymize the crypto. But
Of course.
the idea of being able to anonymize what you're doing is actually really important if you want to
Of
move money
course.
around, again, compliantly. And so we're having conversations about how you do things like that. We're having conversations about real world asset stuff. I mentioned I'm going to be going to the UAE. There's a lot of folks that are very interested in real world assets, but
Of
like
course.
you can't sell, fractionalizing like real estate and like put it all on a public ledger. And if it's all on a public ledger, that messes with the ability for like compliance and regulations to occur.
Yeah.
So like we're looking at that. So there's a lot of projects like that doing what are honestly like very basic things that could happen in traditional finance now, but just need to be able to be
More
done on
private.
blockchains more efficiently,
I agree. And again, looking far into the horizon, I see a future where hacking is done by AI. And if
Yeah,
you have,
totally.
they're able to do 100,000 searches simultaneously. And if the more data that you have out there about the financial things you're doing, the more at risk you are. So I
Yeah,
do see, and it makes sense, everything you're saying, like a full legitimate need for extreme privacy with your
yeah,
financial things that you're doing on chain. It's just been those early adopters, and we have to get over the
yeah.
psyche around privacy means nefarious things are
Yes,
happening.
exactly.
So
Yes, exactly,
that's
exactly.
I think that's what we can talk about with the rest of this show is like, that's the marketing gold that you need to go out and do these interviews and really be like, no, the future of blockchain is private for good reasons.
That's
And
it. Private and compliant, compliant privacy. Like it's been, it's funny because the way that we do blockchain that differs from how, like in a very high level, is that typically if you make a transaction on a blockchain, you basically sign a transaction and then you send the data of that to the blockchain. The blockchain does the computation and then it settles it into the blockchain. That can be very cumbersome, though, if 10 million people do it at the same time. It clogs up the blockchain,
yeah,
right? And so the way that Miden does things differently is basically it allows you to do that computation on a local device, like edge. We call it edge blockchain. It's like just edge compute, client side compute for Web 2. And so you can do the computation on your mobile phone. You can do the computation on your MacBook. And then you generate a ZK proof and you send the proof to the network and it basically validates what it is that you've sent. This is the crazy math part of like how the zero knowledge stuff works is you basically generate a code, you send that code to the blockchain, it verifies that what you're saying is accurate, but it allows you to keep sensitive data available on your local device. It doesn't even need to go anywhere. And
wow,
the file that you send to the blockchain is significantly smaller, so it speeds everything up. And you're able to put basically like things in there that like this transaction will not go through if it's someone who hasn't done this KYC to prove they're not part
that's
of North
cool.
Korea, right? And so like at the idea of being able to do compliant privacy, everywhere I've gone, I'm chatting already with honestly many of the top 20 asset managers in the world already, because
Okay.
all of them are like, wait, you can offer me compliant privacy? I need to understand more. It's not to say deals are done yet, but we're 2 months
Oh no,
in
it's
and we're
going to take a
chatting.
long talk. Yeah.
Yeah,
Those
it
kind
takes
of orgs don't make quick decisions with
at
billions of assets under
exactly.
management. Yeah.
But all of them, every single one of them, every first call we've had, they've asked for second, third, fourth, and now fifth calls with some of them. And I'm chatting with more than 50% of the top 20 asset managers.
Love it.
And so yeah, there's a lot of opportunity available in this space.
Yeah. And are you finding that this is coming inbound or you're having to like reach out? Because I feel like I'm in the space and I have not heard of compliant and private. And I think that can literally be your tagline and your brand, and you can really own it more than anyone else. And that is the future of the space. So,
What's been funny is that so I write for CoinDesk and then I'm a columnist there. I'm also a columnist or a contributor with Forbes Crypto. And what I've actually found, going back to actually some of the marketing side of this, is that I've been writing for publications since 2013, 12 plus years now. And I have always utilized writing as a source of marketing because,
Of course.
like, at the end of the day, particularly when you're writing with publications that are well known, you're leveraging their credibility and their stamp of legitimacy in creating adjacent legitimacy and credibility for yourself. And in doing this, I'm in a position where, like, I've been able to write about interesting things that I know basically have intentionally been topics that can be built on Miden. And I've had
Smart.
a lot of large banks reaching out to me, the payments divisions, even the design divisions, like being like, I read your article on tokenization. I did an article a week and a half ago about Stripe purchasing Bridge and Privy, and like what that means from an implications perspective on why I thought that they had done it, like an analysis. And, I have now multiple people from the Stripe crypto department who've reached out to me on LinkedIn to connect. I've had founders of some of the companies that were acquired that I mentioned reach out to me being like, excellent analysis. We should connect sometime. So like
Amazing.
I have always sort of done this indirect way of creating inbound. And then, I consult with the UNICEF Crypto Fund. I've worked with Mercy Corps on relief in Gaza. I've been faces of crypto
Wow.
philanthropy from the Giving Block 2 years in a row. I'm 100 faces of crypto with Stand with Crypto for like regulatory, and policymaker education stuff. And so I've always put myself in these spots that help create ways to create inbound,
Yeah,
essentially.
and really legitimizes you. I think even those publications you mentioned at the beginning of that are top sources for ChatGPT. So if someone is
Mhm.
at one of those top asset managers and is totally out of the space, who should I talk to in the blockchain space?
Bro,
Oh,
that's
these
happened.
guys, yeah.
This has happened. I
It's
like
called
people.
it's called
This has happened.
AEO, Answer Engine Optimization. It's
Oh,
the new SEO, and it's very
interesting.
similar to SEO technically, like the work that you have to do. You
Yeah.
want to seed the internet legitimately with content that ChatGPT is going to and other AI tools are
Index.
going to index and refer.
That is
But it is
fascinating.
gameable, and we're seeing that you can write your own listicles, putting yourself
Yeah.
as number one, and then if it's unbiased and you put 20 other people on there, it will still grab it. It's much the same way Google does. So if you search digital marketing agency San Francisco, there's an article from Growth Experts, my company, that comes up, maybe not first, but on the first page for sure. And it cost us $0, and an intern did it like a year ago, and we just ranked our
That is
other favorite.
fascinating.
So that's why I tell people you still can't trust anything from ChatGPT like without doing your own research. We can't mindlessly allow AI to do our decision making. You need to use it and then dig deeper and really
Yeah.
look at each company but use it to save time. But I think that that's a really great move. So you mentioned before we were recording that you have a comms team. Are they like actively pitching you for
Yeah.
conferences and podcast interviews
Yeah.
as well?
Yeah. So we just brought them on, just like a head of comms who we haven't even announced yet, but he recently came on and is actively going to be doing that because when we announced our fundraise, we did very well. I got
Yeah.
into Fortune, got into CoinDesk, got into the Block, got into
Oh yeah.
Cointelegraph, got into like there was a bunch of them, and then even we got a newsletter mention for the Wall Street Journal. So like, I've done
Nice.
quite well because I've personally done all of the outreach for being able to do media for us. The podcasts we've been on have been my reach outs or inbound to me. But the problem is with so many other things to do, it's simply not scalable.
Of
And I need
course.
someone who's like on a day-to-day basis looking for like, hey, there is a big Coinbase hack with leaked information. How can we reach out to publications to say, talk to Bob and or Azeem about how this wouldn't have happened had backend been built on Miden, right? And so
Yeah.
brought someone on who, like, moving forward will be able to help with really being able to proactively reach out pitching us as opposed to me finding the
Perfect.
time when I
Yeah,
can
no.
make it.
You just show up for the interviews. You're the face. If that person is listening to this, I think the biggest thing they should focus on early in their role is putting out a white paper about the future of blockchain being private and compliant. I really think
Yeah.
owning those keywords, I do think it is the future of the space. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I just being in a early adopter tech space, seeing
Yep.
how gung-ho everybody is again on it.
Yep.
I didn't understand it until I spoke to you, and like, oh, if it's private and compliant, then everyone, including governments, can be a part of it. And so I think there's a really big case for you being the face of that movement. If they're, no matter how competitive it is, your ability to put it into, because again, it's a fringe tech thing. Like, it's still considered realm for guys like Bobbin and people that are outside of the space are like, okay, I know Bitcoin and that's it.
Yeah.
So you do have a marketing opportunity to really get the world on chain right now, because it's way more applicable to, outside of big tech. So I've had a lot of success in using that early comms person. Hey, you're going to write research. I'm going to put you in touch with people you need to interview. We want quotes from these people. You have that network. You get them to write a really big white paper. And obviously with ChatGPT, it's like a million times easier than it used to be. It took me like 3 months pre-ChatGPT to write a really good white paper. But then you get that white paper circulated out to the media. So you already have all these contacts. The comms person is building that Rolodex of people they want to send it to as they're creating the white paper. They're going to ghostwrite it. It's going to be written by you, and you're going to have a final say and make it make sense. Bobbin's going to look through it, make it really genius, technical, and accurate. And then, you get quoted like for a year later because of that report. And also especially industry niche specific media, they will push that white paper out for you for free because it's so interesting.
That's fascinating.
And then we always get a hyperlink in those articles that drives people to download the full white paper on our site. And then usually I would always have it email the white paper to the downloadee, CCing the CEO. And then the CEO can look at the URL of the email and be like, oh shit, the Taiwanese government just downloaded this. We should put them in our pipeline. Yeah. And so there's all this. I do think like it's a quick grab for becoming the company that's well known for driving compliance and privacy forwards in blockchain. So it's worth spending a significant amount of money to be the first mover in that space.
I'm 100% going to do this.
I love it. And I loved what you said in the beginning, and you just like kept going, so I didn't want to interrupt you. But when you were like, I don't look at anyone else as competitive, that is the absolute right way to think, because they are also spending on educating the market. They are also expanding your market for you. So there is no such thing as competition, because if you're doing your shit really good, then you will get to where you need to get.
Exactly. At the end of the day, the idea of like infighting when we're in these small circles, it would just be being crabs in a barrel. Like, why would we be fighting with each other when like a small speck of the world, like at best, people have started to know what Bitcoin is. But like, if I went to go talk to most people, when they say cryptocurrencies, instead of knowing that, they say your Bitcoins. And when Bitcoin plural means cryptocurrencies, like Bitcoin is basically the only one with name recognition, and everyone fights as if it's something different. And I'm like, no, like I have a 10 to 20 year mental trajectory on this space. And so like these small things don't matter to me.
Yeah. No, I love it. I totally see a future where we remember when we used to only use this for money and finance related stuff.
Exactly.
And now it's like let me get my college degree from my university blockchain. And like,
let's put my a marriage certificate when you purchase property, like all of those things, they're just going to make sense to be on blockchains. That's it.
Beautiful, man. Well, we talked way too much about other stuff. I kind of ran out of time of giving you more marketing advice, but tell your comms guy to get in touch. I'd love to continue teaching you guys how to really crush this white paper, because you are the most eloquent, like talented translator of this space that I've seen in the last decade.
Thank you.
And I think that is a huge gift that the company should really be promoting to the maximum, because everybody else is, no offense to Bobbin, guys like Bobbin in the space, and regular people that even in tech that aren't technical are not gravitating towards hearing Bobbin speak. No offense to Bobbin. He's the builder.
That's why they brought me in. That's,
yeah.
it was
And
like,
so,
and Bobbin knows that. Bobbin gets his, I could never do the math that Bobbin does. Like
no.
my team on team calls, like make jokes with each other about like polynomials. Well, I don't even know what a polynomial is. You know what I mean? But they literally make a joke about like polynomials.
And he should also be speaking and doing like really technical stuff, because you need respect from builders, and you need respect on his technical prowess from governments to like, yes, I'm going to get in bed with these guys. But the money grab right now is being that leader, and that, like you said, giving the Bitcoin level recognition for the future of blockchain. Miden is that company. And so, marketing should definitely be, marketing has always driven crypto and the blockchain space. So totally. I'm sure you're putting a budget there, but instead of doing like Instagram ads to regular people, it's putting out a white paper about the future of blockchain being private and compliant. And put a couple of months into that, and I think it'll pay dividends for several years.
We 100% will be, dude. 100% will be.
And then with your contacts, dude. And with your contacts in the media, like you'll have a huge leg up for that, and so it's a no-brainer. But
I'm excited for this.
Azeem, it was nice. Well, and if you're in San Francisco, definitely hit me up. Would love to hang out and introduce you to some other blockchain people here. Like I said, it's just starting to pop up again. I'm like, oh wow, people are coming back, and I was surprised. Like it's all AI stuff here, and there's a couple blockchain startups in North Beach. They literally picked one area specifically to try and turn it into the
blockchain
space.
area, whatever. Interesting.
They just want to be able to speak their language to each other, I think, and so
I'll definitely hit you up. I have a family out in Oakland. I have family out in San Ramon. I have friends that live in different parts, Danville. So I have to come out there anyway. One of my friends just recently had a kid. So I have to come out. Like one of them had a kid 2 months ago. So next time I'm out there, I'm definitely going to hit you up.
Awesome. And we'll talk offline about your trip to Dubai. I'll connect you to some people out there.
Please. I would love
Azeem, shukriya. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure. And thank you for sharing all your wisdom, and best of luck to you in the future.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
That has been another episode of the Funded Now What podcast with your host, Andrew Lee Miller, brought to you by Growth Experts. If you liked this episode, please subscribe. And if you really liked it, please share with other founders and entrepreneurs. Thanks. And we'll see you in the next episode.